Welcome back to study tip for IGCSE Biology. Today's topic is related to coordination and response. Without further delay, let's begin. In this chapter, you will find out about central and peripheral nervous system improvements, sensory, relay, and motor neurons, reflex arc and reflex actions, structure and function of a synapse, voluntary and involuntary actions, sense organ and receptors, structure and functions of the eyes, the pupils reflex, the endocrine system including hormone, adrenaline, insulin, estrogen, and testosterone, function of glands, nervous system and endocrine system, and how plants respond to stimuli. The human nervous system. The human nervous system is made of special cells called neuron. Neuron contain basic parts as animal cells like has, which is nucleus, cytoplasm, and cell membrane. Their structure is specially adapted to be able to carry messages very quickly. They have long, thin fiber of cytoplasm stretching out from cell body. The longest fiber is called axon. Axon can be more than a meter long. The shorter fiber are called dendrons or dendrites. Dendrites pick up electrical signal from other neurons lying nearby. These signals are called nerve impulses. The signal passes to the cell body, then along the axon, which might pass it to another neuron. Some of the nerve fiber of active animals like mammals are wrapped in a layer of fat and protein called myelin. They are narrow gaps in the myelin sheath. Signals that neurons transmit are in the form of electrical impulses. Myelin insulate the nerve fiber so that they can carry this impulse much faster. Myelinate nerve fiber in cat's body can carry impulses at up to 100 meters per second. So a fiber without myelin can only carry impulses at about 5 meters per second. On the right hand side is a diagram of neurons. So this is human motor neuron. A central nervous system. All mammals and many other animals have a central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And central nervous system is made up of brain and spinal cord, whereas peripheral nervous system is made up of nerves and receptor. What is a central nervous system? Central nervous system is made up of neuron. So its role is to coordinate the messages traveling through nerve system. Let's look into this situation. First, when receptor detects stimulus, it sends a stimulus, it sends electrical impulses to the brain and spinal cord. From step 2, it goes to step 3. That means it sends the impulse to the brain and the spinal cord. Brain and the spinal cord, these two, brain and spinal cord, receive the impulse. They receive the impulse and then they send the impulse along appropriate nerve fiber to appropriate effector. Okay. How the reflex of the reflex arts work. Let's look into the first step. How does it work is when the hand touch a hot plate. So when the hand touch a hot plate, what does it happen? An impulse is picked up by sensory receptor in your finger. And then it's traveled to spinal cord along the axon from receptor cells, which is called sensory neuron. Okay, this is the receptor cells called receptor, which is called sensory neuron. And then from the spinal cord, the neuron passes impulses on to several other neurons called relay neuron. And then what happens is goes to number 4, where the cell body of the relay neuron. And then from there, it goes to relay neuron pass the impulse to the brain and the effector muscles in your arm. And then a nerve impulse from the motor neuron makes the muscle contract. And this action is called reflex action. So the sensory along which the nerve impulse passes the sensory neuron, relay neuron and motor neuron is called reflex arc. So this is called as a reflex arc. So the neurons that involved is relay neuron, sensory neuron, and motor neuron. So if you can see, there is a different type of neuron. Motor neurons, they got cell body here on the top there, and then it pass the impulses down. Like if sensory neuron, they don't have cell body, but the cell body is actually located in the middle of the in between, if you can see. And the relay neurons, the cell body is actually at the center. Okay. Synapses. How does synapses work? 3 neurons involved in the reflex arc, not to connect with each other. There is small gap between each pair called synaptic cleft. This is the one. And the end of the 2 neurons, either sides of the cleft, plus the cleft itself called synapses. And synapses means a junction between 2 nerve cells consisting of a minute gap across. You can see from this diagram, which impulses pass by diffusion of the neurotransmitter. Let's look at this diagram. Refer to this diagram. First, when the impulse arrives along the axon of the sensory neuron, the direction of the impulse. So it causes this vesicle to move to the cell membrane and empty their content into the synaptic cleft. And what will happen that inside axon of sensory neuron, there are hundreds of tiny vacuoles or vesicles, which each contain a chemical called transmitter, substance, or neurotransmitter, and attaches to a receptor molecule in the cell membrane of relay neuron. This can happen because the shape of neurotransmitter molecule is complementary to the shape of receptor molecule. And then the binding of neurotransmitter with receptor trigger nerve impulse in relay neuron. So this impulse sweeps along relay neuron until it reaches the next synapses. And similar process occur to transmit the impulse to motor neuron. Synapses act like one-way valve. There is only neurotransmitter on one side of the synapses, so the impulse can only go across from that side. Synapses will ensure that nerve impulses only travel in one direction. Let's look under receptor. What is receptor? Okay, under receptor topics, you're going to learn about the eyes. and the function of the eyes. Sense organ, group of receptor cells responding to specific stimuli like light, sounds, touch, temperature, and chemicals. Example given here is eye. Is a sense organ, rod and cone cells is retina are receptors. They are sensitive to the lights. Let's look the functions of retina. Where does retina located? Retina located at the back of the eyes. When light falls on receptor cell in retina, the cell sends electrical impulse along optic nerve to the brain. And the two receptors cells in retina, that is a rod cell and the cone cell. What is a rod cell? Rod cells is very sensitive in dim light, do not respond to color. And the cone cells is able to distinguish between different color of light, only function when light is bright. And the three kinds of cone, which is sensitive to the red, green, blue lights. Rod cells allow us to see in dim light, but only in black and white. Cone cells is a color vision. Is a fovea contain entirely cone. And the brain sort out all the impulses from each receptor cells and view an image. Some of these receptors are sensitive to light, different color, which is enable us to see color images. So the closer together the receptor cells are, the clearer the image the brain will get. So the part of retina where the receptor cells are packed most closely together is called fovea. Part of retina where light is focused when you look straight at an object. Okay, this is the fovea located. And let's look under choroid. Choroid is actually located behind retina. It's a black layer called choroid. So it's absorbed all the lights after it has been through the retina, so it does not get scattered around the inside of the eyes. So choroid rich in blood vessels which nourish the eyes. And there is also, if you can see, this part is a blind spot. There are no receptor cells. When light falls on this place, no impulse sends to the brain. And let's look under iris. What is the function of iris? Iris is the front of the lens, color part of the eyes, which is contain pigments which absorb light and stop getting through retina. This is the function of iris. And pupil. The size pupils can be adjusted. Wider pupils, more light can get through to retina. In strong light, the iris close in and make pupils small. Stop too much light getting in damaging retina. Circular muscles lie in the circle around pupils. When contract, they make pupils dilate and get larger. This is called iris reflex or pupils reflex. Let's look under the endocrine system. Endocrine glands, nerve can carry electrical impulses very quickly from one part of an animal's body to another. Animals use chemical to transmit information from one part of the body to another. The chemical is called hormone. In other words, hormone is a chemical substance produced by a gland carried by the blood which alter the activity of one or more specific target organs. Hormones are made in a special gland called endocrine gland. Endocrine glands have a good blood supply. They have blood capillaries running right through them. Endocrine gland make hormone and releases directly into the blood. Other sorts of glands do not do as endocrine gland is salivary glands. Salivary glands do not secrete saliva into the blood. Saliva is secreted into the salivary duct, which carry it into the mouth. Endocrine glands do not have duct and sometimes called ductless gland. So one hormone is in the blood, it is carried to all parts of the body and dissolved in the plasma. So although blood carrying many hormones, Each will affect only certain part of the body and it's called target organs. Okay, this is this diagram shows where the glands located. Okay, like pituitary glands, thyroid gland, adrenal gland, pancreas gland, and testosterone or testis on ovaries in female, and ovaries are a little higher in the abdomen. Let's look at different types of gland and what kind of the hormone that they secretes and the functions of the hormone. If you can see adrenal gland, the hormone that come out from adrenal gland is called adrenaline. And the functions of the hormone of adrenaline is to prepare body for vigorous action. Pancreas, gland from pancreas, and hormone that is secreted is called insulin. And the function is to reduce the concentration of glucose in the blood. Testis, the hormone that is secreted is testosterone, which is causes the development of male secondary sexual characteristic. And gland ovary, estrogen, causes the development of female secondary sexual characteristic and help in the control of the menstrual cycle. Thyroid is the hormone that is secreted, name it as hormone calcitonin, thyroxine, T4, and thyronin, which is T3. So the functions of the hormone is to keep body process, including metabolism, mood, breathing, heart rate, running smoothly. Pituitary, there's a various hormone that is secreted. If let's see, you can see ACTH, which is the function is to adrenal cortex. TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, is for functions of hormone is for thyroid. And LH is to trigger important process in your reproductive system. FSH is to help control the menstrual cycle and stimulate the growth of eggs in the ovary. And PRL is a prolactin, causes the breast to grow and make milk during pregnancy and after birth. GH, the function is to stimulate the growth of essentially all tissues of the body, including bone. And MSH is to preserve the skin from ultraviolet ray and development of pigmentation and controlling appetite. Okay, this is the differences or the functions of the nervous system and the endocrine system. Nervous system, the characteristic is made up of neuron, whereas endocrine made up of secretory cells. In the nervous system, information transmitted in the form of electrical impulse, whereas in endocrine system, the information transmitted in the form of chemical called hormone. Nervous system, the impulses transmitted along nerve fiber, axon and dendron, whereas endocrine system, the chemical carry dissolved in the blood plasma. Nervous system impulses travel very quickly, and whereas endocrine system, the chemical travel more slowly. And in nervous system, the effect of the nerve impulse usually only lasts for a very short time, but for endocrine system, the effect of the hormone may last longer. Coordination and response in plant. Like animals, plants able to respond to their environment usually much slower than animals. Plants respond to stimuli by changing their rate or direction of growth. Growth towards stimuli is its positive response, and the growth away from stimuli is negative response. These response are called tropism. Gravitropism, a response in which a plant grows towards or away from gravity. Phototropism, a response in which a plant grows toward or away from the direction from which light is coming. Plant hormone. Plants do not have complex sense organ, muscle, or nervous system, but they manage to respond to stimuli like light and gravity. So from the diagram A, shows that the sensitive region is the tip of the shoot. Okay, this is where the receptor is. Okay, and then the part of the shoot which respond to stimuli is the part below the tip. This is effector. So two parts of the shoot must be communicating with one another. And they do it by means of chemical called plant hormone. So it's actually in this diagram, an experiment has been done to investigate the method by which should respond to the light. Okay, so this is the how is tried to explain in this diagram in line with the sentences on the left hand side. Okay, auxin. Auxin is a plant hormone. It's made up all the time by cells in the tips of a shoot, which means that here, if you can see, auxin is made here. Auxin diffuses downward from the tip into the rest of the shoot. Okay, auxin made in the tip diffuses evenly down the shoot, and the shoot grows straight up. So like this. Auxin makes the cell just behind the tip get longer. More auxin there, the faster they will grow. Without auxin, they will not grow. Okay, as per the diagram previously, an experiment investigating method by which shoots respond to the light. If you can see here, auxin concentrate on the shady side. If you can see, these are the auxin. But somehow cell on this side grow slowly. But the light is coming from this side. So this is to show that the way is the plant move is actually towards to the light. Okay, this is considered as a phototropism. Okay, auxin and phototropism. So however, light shine onto the shoot from one side. The auxin at the tip concentrate on the shady side. If you can see, auxin is actually full in this side, on the shady side. And this makes the cell on the shady side grow faster than the one on the bright side. So the shoot bends toward the light. Because if you can see, the cells on this side grow. Okay, from this side, from the shady side. Respond to gravity. Okay, this is the example of the plant and also the bean seedling, which is how to show how the plants respond to the gravity. If the portcullis plant is placed on its side in a dark room overnight, okay, it's placed like this. This is the before, the plant, how does it look like? And the shoot will bend upward. Okay, you see after, it's actually the plant is bent upward. Since there is no light, we can presume that the result to be respond to gravity. Okay, actually this is the gravity. But it's try to move to the other side. So with the stem in horizontal position, auxin tend to collect on the lower side of stem, causing faster growth there. Therefore, the stem curve upwards. Okay, this is to show the example, the response to gravity in the coleus shoot. Okay, where does the gravity pull? This is the root. The root is actually fallen from this side. So bean seedling in the diagram above, where auxin have built up on the lower surface of the root. So the effect here, however, the opposite that is in the coleus shoot. So this amount of auxin slow down the growth on this side, and so the radical bends downward. You can see. Even you are putting on this horizontal, it's actually the root is actually bend downward. Okay. So with that being said, I hope you will enjoy reading and studying. Thank you very much.